Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we discuss a new anime like a book club in that type of style. We turn our discussion over to you to carry on whatever thoughts that we have, to make corrections for us. Join in the discussion. We are all Bakas in this together. And yes, we do mean that as an insult. Suckers. No.
Adam.
We are having a special episode today, so once a year, around the holiday time, to give us ourselves some more free time with our families and our fun presents, we decide instead of watching a 12-episode series, we're just gonna watch a hour and a half, 2-hour movie, anime movie, and that's what we did here. And we chose Jujutsu Kaisen 0 this time, so that will be our discussion. And to help me talk about it, we have the claws to my Wolverine. It's Jeremy.
Hey.
Hot take. He's going to do a super hot take right now. It's going to be so
Hot
sizzling.
take. I'd rather watch Demon Slayer.
Hot take.
There is a mix of hot take and anime.
We also have the tongue to my toad. It's Jason with his hot take.
Studio Trigger's amazing. However, Fooly Cooly will never be good.
Those are two separate takes at the same
Well,
time.
Studio Trigger is being good is not a hot take.
Right.
The
Yeah.
hot take
there's
is
no reason to
Fooly
include it at
Cooly.
all.
No. I'm clarifying for those that want to fight me. I do appreciate Studio Trigger animation and anime, except Fooly Cooly because it's hot. Never mind.
But they were
See,
Gainax
nobody-
at the time.
What?
Studio Trigger didn't make Fooly Cooly. Gainax did.
But anyways.
Hot take!
Fooly Cooly's the worst.
And my real hot take, my name is Troy, and I have a real one, in that Suicide Squad Isekai is going to end up being terrible. I don't think it'll have any depth. I think it's just a cash grab of smashing together Western and Eastern and trying to get money out of it. I love the concept, and I just don't feel like they're going to do it right.
Hot lava.
That's right. That's hot lava. You're stepping in it. Now I feel like I'm like one of those commercials late at night.
Yeah.
You're stepping in it. Call 1-800.
Whoa, I'm not sure
Whoa.
that's a lot of people that understand that reference.
To
It's
order
not
the chop.
800, it's 900.
I wouldn't know, Jeremy.
How would
Don't call those.
Yeah,
numbers.
let's explore this.
No, but actually there was 1-800 numbers to get you to call the 1-900 number. They would pretend like they were free.
Jump through hoops.
All right, we are talking about Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Let's have Jeremy start off with his non-spoiler review, so you can get a feel how he thought about it, if he recommends it. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I mean, it was good. It was pretty. But it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't anything that like really wowed me as far as story or characters or anything. It felt very much like a lot of shonen that I've seen before. It was just way prettier. So, and maybe the Jujutsu setting gives it a lot of extra potency, but having not seen season 2, it just really didn't hit me with a lot of impact. So, I don't know. Maybe there's some homework you have to do before really enjoying this one.
Hot take.
There. That's my hot take.
That's good that you called out what you have and haven't seen, because right now season 2 has ended in the sub, has I think 1 episode left in the dub, and we're all in different places in our Jujutsu Kaisen journey. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, what'd you think?
I've seen it twice now because I saw it a couple weeks ago, and then anyways, both times I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Like Jeremy said, the animation's gorgeous. I found the story compelling. I liked Yuta's story, but Gojo is always just kind of the front and center for me. But I do feel if you were to if this was your first experience with Jujutsu Kaisen, like this was the first thing you picked up as far as media for it, it would be confusing. I think there's some extraneous pieces of media, I think, makes it a more enjoyable experience. Without any of it, though, I think it would still be fun to watch. But yeah, really like it.
So when we first started this podcast, I was very vocal about how I was done with battle shonen anime. And since then, I've been a huge My Hero Academia fan, Demon Slayer fan, Jujutsu Kaisen fan. And I gotta admit, I was lying to myself or lying to you guys. So apparently I just love, but I do think the bigger thing is that my big complaint was they don't end. And Jujutsu Kaisen's coming to its end in the manga. My Hero Academia is in the final battle of its manga. Demon Slayer ended. I still don't want to watch One Piece because it's still going. So
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is I do still love this stuff. My complaint has been addressed, so I'm good. With that said, when I first watched Jujutsu Kaisen a couple months back at this movie, my daughter had wanted to start watching season 2, and I said, well, I got to watch the movie first. So we sat and watched the movie to start. We were a couple episodes behind in season 2. And it'd been a while since season 1, and I was like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I recognize Gojo. And I'm very much in Jeremy's boat. This is very pretty. It feels very shallow. I don't understand anybody's motivations, and I walked away with a bunch of questions. I have now watched all of season 2 and then tumbled down wiki rabbit holes, read mangas. I am spoilered up, which leaves me a little cursed tonight because I gotta be very careful what I say about explanations because they're not in here. They show up much later in the story. However, with all that knowledge, especially season 2, watching this movie was like my brain exploded. Everything made sense. Everything was clicking. It was like, oh, this is one of the most impactful moments of history in this series. And that was very cool to do. So on its own, I think it's a very pretty watch. In its greater part of the lore, if you are ingesting it, however you are ingesting it, I think it's awesome. So I highly recommend it for Jujutsu Kaisen fans. It's a can't miss. Also, while we're in the non-spoiler section, I want to give some backstory on what Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is. It was originally called editing.
It's a sweet name.
The original name was Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical School, and it was the author Gege, I believe is their name. They're a mysterious writer. No one knows who they are. He got a one-shot in Shonen Jump, and he wrote this story. And they said, and it was so popular and did so well, they said, make us another story. You get a long-running series. And then he said, well, I'm not going to make a new series. I'm just going to use the same world, but start over with all new characters. And this will serve as a prequel to that story. So this was originally written as its own enclosed, simple story that now serves as a prequel to Jujutsu Kaisen. And in that light, it makes a lot of sense why stuff isn't being explained, why stuff feels rushed, and why a lot of this stuff seems almost lost when you get to the regular series and then it's starting to fill back in. I do think that's really important and isn't really a spoiler to anything, but it just kind of, so many prequels are like, I want to tell you why Han Solo has his name and his vest and his gun and why his boots are this color. This isn't doing. This is a true prequel of just, these are events that happened before the main story started. And I do really appreciate it for that, because I don't usually like prequels, but this one is a true, just the start of the story. All right. There's no opening and closing. Did you guys think the credits look cool while they scrolled past?
I love the color choices.
Music? How about music? How do you guys feel about the music in this?
It was good. I didn't. None of the battle sequence music tracks jumped out at me more than it would in the regular show. But I will say the visuals were amazing.
I agree with that. All right. So we are now going to go on to the spoiler section, but before we do, our next special episode, which is going to be Jason's rules-free retro pick, an anime that he's always wanted to discuss here on the podcast. Again, this is a special time of year for us that we do this for all the hosts, except for me who does the movie. He picks Samurai Champloo. We're going to watch the first 14 episodes of that, and then we will be discussing that next podcast. Also, a reminder that we need recommendations from you guys, the listeners, because you are also getting your own episode for a rules-free pick, something that you wish that we'd always discuss. We are taking suggestions in now, and then we will create a voting system, which will be announced in our next episode.
Just for a little context, this was an anime that I watched before I knew I really liked anime. Because I saw it on TV in the Cartoon Network at night.
Toonami.
Yeah, and it also, like, I kind of knew what anime was, but I wasn't really like a big anime fan. So I'd like to go over this one again.
I remember watching it because they had the same voice actor for Spike in Cowboy Bebop. And I thought it was like, oh, it's like the same guy. I got to watch this.
He looks pretty similar.
They do.
Yeah.
All right. So that is those announcements. All business has been taken care of. It's time to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen 0 with spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning. If you want to go watch this movie and not be spoiled, watch a little bit of season 2 first. But spoilers from here on out about the movie. And again, I will do my best not to spoil anything that is not part of this movie. There's gonna be discussions about why stuff works, and I'm gonna have to probably touch on some things that are hinted at. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how to play it. Hopefully I get it right. I'm gonna do my best.
Play by ear.
Yeah, like we always do. And then totally crash into the ground. All right, so this takes place before the original Jujutsu Kaisen series started. Actually, it's a 1 year before. And we start with a young man who's being bullied in school, and then an evil spirit comes up to protect him, not killing the bullies, we are told multiple times, but like we see them without skin smashed into a locker, and I'm like, well, they're probably dead. How do you
And blood coming out of the locker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see how 4 teenage boys can fit in a locker.
It's totally mutilated. Yeah, it's messed up. But this young man who was being bullied and has this cursed spirit attached to him is Yuta, our main protagonist. Your guys' thoughts on the character of Yuta?
I have mixed feelings about Yuta. But in light of, I kind of like his arc, but I don't like. I'm having change of heart as I talk.
Spicy.
I know, right? It's interesting because we come to find out later that he is a Jujutsu sorcerer, like by bloodline, and that he probably should have been being trained earlier on, but he wasn't. And then, he's able to use cursed energy in a very advanced way. But he doesn't realize that he has this natural talent and natural ability until much later on. And so we get this kind of whiny protagonist going on, right? Where I'm so lonely or lowly. I'm not as good as my peers. Everyone's so much better than me. How will I ever live up to them? And I'm not sure he ever grows out of that. So I'm not a big fan of that. I like it when if they have some self-doubt, they kind of express it and then they get over it. He's able to kind of do that, but he's still very self-doubty. even though he's like he proves himself against one of the most powerful fighters in Jujutsu history. So, I like the story around him, and I kind of like him, but I think I would have liked a little less like of that self-doubt. But I do understand like the trauma that he realizes at the end, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The whininess was really bugging me at the beginning. I liked Rika. She was cool, and just the story surrounding her and their relationship and how it came to be. It had
He's the
that sort of
cursed-
yeah. It had that sort of creepy, uncanny weirdness to it that I always find interesting. But as far as Yuta himself goes, he's probably the biggest complaint I have with the movie. Is just that he fits so well into the tropey main character expectations that I have. Like, lots of power, just not tapped into. Emotion will fuel that power and unlock latent abilities that he always had, and then he'll win. And I don't know. To me, that's just not satisfying.
I did like his tenacity. I will have to say that, because there is some montages where he just gets the absolute crap ton kicked out of him, and he still is like, teach me more. And so like that I appreciated, but mostly I agree with you, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will start by saying I like him more than Yuji. I feel like he's more developed than Yuji, where Yuji kind of feels like a blank slate to me back in season 1 especially. And this felt like I do agree that he's a very tropey main character protagonist. He definitely fits that mold. And I also think because it's a movie, or it was a one-shot, whatever you want to phrase it, his development goes by really fast and a lot of off-screen. We get like major points in his character arc. We get to see, hey, I'm more confident now, and hey, I'm more trained and more confident now. But we don't really get to see him push past the very specific hurdles to get to that point. It's just, okay, here's him in despair. Here's him feeling lowly. Here's him starting to feel confident. Here's him at his peak. Just because it's a very fast story.
I was about to say, and I think the movie does a disservice to that because, like, for instance, he ends up finding out he has a healing ability, and he's able to proficiently use it with very little effort, even though Gato says, oh, that's an advanced technique, and this kid's been there for less than a year. But then with Itadori, we see him use Black Flash, which we come to find out is an advanced skill that people can't use very often, and he develops it to where he can use it very often. But
that's not true. He only uses it once.
He uses it
Black
a bunch
Flash
of times. What are you talking about?
He only used Black Flashes once in this.
Against the tree?
Oh, are you talking Yuji?
No, I'm talking about the difference between Yuta and Itadori.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Cut that. No one needs to know Jason was right.
Who's Itadori again? Is that voice kid or is that someone else?
Yuji. No, that's Yuji from the other main character from the anime.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I can remember Yuji. I did not remember Itadori. Okay. Sorry.
That's what everyone calls him when you're watching the series because everyone's so proper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the difference between is like, that healing ability, we didn't get to see him develop, and like we didn't get a sense of time where he improved over a long period of time, unlike with Yuji, where he incrementally got better to where he was able to surpass other sorcerers with Black Flash.
So all of that is very valid, especially in the context of the movie. There is absolutely a in-lore reason Yuta can do that. But this movie never actually tells us what Yuta's curse technique is, because everyone has the power.
He's rogue, isn't he? He's the thief of the Jujutsu world.
I will just say that the healing technique is so advanced, there's only one other character in all of Jujutsu Kaisen who can actually do it. And Gojo can only do it to himself. So the healing other people, there's only one person who can do that. Which the movie doesn't really point out. Like, he just suddenly does it, and you're like, oh, he's healing people. But that's an insane and a huge clue to his actual ability. That's all I can say.
Yeah, taken on its own, I find that to be very detrimental for just the movie. Like, if you just have a movie where the character all of a sudden is doing these things in the very last fight with no preamble, no explanation, that are super advanced techniques. I didn't even know that there was only one other person that can do that. But he also steals like the voice thing from the kid with the voice. And that's an advanced technique as well. So like just all of a sudden he needs to beat the bad guy, and so Yuta suddenly has all the powers of the other characters at his disposal. For a movie, that's painful.
There's also a little bit of a retcon on how powers work, and so in the movie it's not as a big of a jump for him doing that, whereas and then in the actual series they go back and retcon why it works, and then it's even bigger jump. That's all I So, but I 100% agree with you, is what I also want to say. Because when I saw this the first time and he started healing people, I was just like, oh, okay. But again, now,
do anything.
Watching him heal people, my jaw dropped. I was like, no way. that's so big. Yeah. Healing is hard. Yeah, so that was Yuta. And for Rika, she is scary looking. I do like her appearance. I would have
Especially
liked
when she opens her eye.
I would have liked, we in the regular series we see so many special grade curses and how cool they are. There's the volcano guy, and there's a guy who can morph you into anything if he touches you. And she's just big and rips things apart. I would have liked to give her a little bit more flavor. Again, this is kind of where ideas are starting to be born. But I'm judging this as in your place in Jujutsu. I'm watching this after season 1. I think Rika is actually a little underdeveloped compared to
her
other bad guys.
Her design, however, is just amazing.
Yeah.
The cursed spirits throughout this entire series are fantastic. In fact, I like
except for Jogo.
Fair enough.
Jogo.
Is that the volcano guy?
Yeah, the volcano guy. Yeah. So dumb.
There's a scene coming up where they get confronted at the school, and to escape, he summons this huge one-eyed spirit. The design on it is just grossly fantastic. And so, but I found Rika's design very well done. Especially later on when she opens her eye.
Yeah. Yep. I thought her powers were pretty cool. Just in the sense of like there were two things that were said. One was that a curse is powered by how much energy, right? Like curse energy is in it, and she's supposed to be infinite. So that's kind of cool. And then the second thing was when Geto said that it looks like she can transform into anything that she wants to be. So this is just one form that she's exhibiting. Now, both of those things made her very interesting, but neither one was actually ever elaborated on or really made use of in the movie. So it was like she's way more cool than she's given to display to us. Yep. People are talking about how cool she is, but we don't get to see it.
After the incident at the high school, he is brought to Jujutsu High to face the Jujutsu higher-ups. And I still have no idea what those are. But very similar setup to we saw from Yuji in season 1 is that, hey, this kid's a danger. Let's execute him. Gojo walks in and defends him and says, well, let's see how this plays out. Let's embrace him instead. I'll take personal responsibility. And so this is our first introduction to Gojo. So now we need to talk about Gojo specifically in this movie. How you feel about it?
I really like him. Obviously from the beginning of season 2, he's much more mature. He's the same mature Gojo that we get from season 1, where, he's got the playful side. Nothing really scares him because he is limitless. But the fact that he's even with this special grade, he's just like fairly nonchalant. And I love the line that he says to the council. He's like, if you choose, just know that if you choose what you're going to choose, I'll side with Yuta. And like that look in his eye, and also the fact that he keeps his eyes covered all the time, like every time he exposes an eye, it's kind of like those, the trope character of the closed eyelids, but then when they open their eyes, they're super serious, right? Gojo's kind of got that, but also it makes me wonder just how strategic he is, or if he's careless. Because there's a fine line there between, he sees so far ahead, he knows that he can let certain things happen, or he took a gamble and it just happened to work in his favor. I'm not sure which is which. I tend to lean towards he's really smart, but some of the decisions he makes at the end of the movie are questionable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's okay. I don't have any complaints about him or anything. I tend to think he's actually pretty impulsive, just because when you have a lot of power, you don't have to worry as much about being strategic. So that would be my guess, but I don't know. He might like display something in season 2 that gives more of an indication of that intelligence, but I don't know. He's all right. He just seems like a powerhouse in this. Like, that was his value to me in this.
I definitely thought about this in season 1, but it comes up again in this movie, and I think it's really interesting. Gojo is so strong that everything the bad guys do is, how do we get around Gojo?
Or delay him.
Yeah, to the point where his team is never the underdogs. And in every other, like, battle anime, Naruto's team is, they're the underdog. Ichigo's team, we're the underdogs. Those bad guys are so strong. But in this one, the bad guys are like, the good guys are so strong that we literally have to manipulate so much just to get around that one guy so that we can be on even footing and have a chance.
And only get one chance.
And
with the time limit.
Yeah.
It's an interesting problem he created for himself. I know for a fact Gege hates Gojo. I think he created him thinking this was really cool, and then this writing like, oh man, I had to constantly plan around this. That's gotta be frustrating. But I think it's what makes Jujutsu Kaisen so unique is he's like nuclear deterrent in living form. And they also hint at he has his own motives. Watching this the second time, I really came to a big realization that X-Men fits all this a lot, and he is the Charles Xavier. He is trying to make the better world for others. So it's hinted at here that Gojo has his own agenda, especially like Jason mentioned, when the higher ups are like, we want to do this, he's like, but then I'm going to go against you. And because he's that nuclear deterrent, they basically have to give in. But even he says that they're going to kill us if we get this wrong. And Gojo and Geto remind me a lot of X-Men. He's like Charles Xavier trying to make this better future for Jujutsu sorcerers in his own way, versus like, I want to break away from the stigmas of the past or of all this family nonsense. We get word about the families again. It comes up in here. And where Geto has his own, who we'll talk about later, his own plans. So the more I learned about Gojo, and especially again watching this, which is a major story point for Gojo, he was more interesting this time, especially than the first time I watched this movie, and even in season 1. Now that I kind of see where he's going with things. All right, so while at first Yuta is like, no, I'd rather just be alone. Gojo's like, but no one wants to be alone, and he agrees, so he enrolls in Jujutsu High School. And we are introduced to his first-year classmates, and we're going to talk about them one by one. First up, we have Maki, the cursed weapon user. So your guys' thoughts on Maki?
I liked that we learned more. I'm not sure if in season 1 we find out that she can only see cursed spirits because of her glasses. They're not prescription.
I think they mentioned that in season 1.
Did they? Okay, because I didn't remember that until the movie said this. So that was interesting that she, Gato even calls her out like you're the failed prodigy of your clan.
You monkey.
Even though, and okay, no, never mind. I can't talk about season 2. I really liked the amount of time we got to spend with her because she, in season 1, she does have such a chip on her shoulder, and she has the same chip in this one, but we get a closer relationship with her and get to see her relationship with Yuta. And it felt very natural. Like the writing was really good between them. Even though he just kept getting his butt kicked by her every time they sparred. Yeah, I think I liked Maki here more than I did in season 1.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. She was actually the character that I found the most interesting whenever she was on screen. Like, she had a real chip on her shoulder, and when she would go into fights, it felt like she was very prepared. She was, ordering him around, at the same time trying to sort of draw him out of his shell, and very vocal about what her own complaints were, which were kind of cool because a lot of times you don't see that with characters. They'll just be angry and simmer at each other, but not really explain why. So you never get it out there until much later. But this happened pretty quick. And again, it's a movie, so the format's going to speed it up. But it was interesting. So those exchanges were good. Yeah, she was entertaining. I was a little sad at the end when we didn't actually get to see her fight. She just lost. But yeah, still good.
Yeah, I feel she was done dirty by not getting to see that fight because she actually was my favorite character of this movie, and even after I had season 1 and having been introduced, she stands out in this movie with her character arc. I'm going to be very general here, but Jujutsu Kaisen does this cool thing with its power system where there's if you give up something, you get something in return. That comes up in this movie, and we'll talk about it more. But the example back in season 1 was like if you tell someone how your curse technique works, it works better. But now they know how to plan for it, right? So you sacrificed that advantage to get a new advantage to strengthen it. That's all over the place in Jujutsu Kaisen. And there's also for some characters, there's if you're the Yamcha, you're actually awesome. Because you were made the Yamcha. That applies to Maki a little bit, and I find that fascinating to add into your series, where literally your weakest characters get to be strong just because of that give and take rule in Jujutsu Kaisen, and Maki being kind of the main character that has it. I'm fascinated with her.
It made a little bit of sense though, as far as like if you have so much time. Which fight are you going to cut out? Well, what that showed the audience is that it was an inconsequential fight. That Gato was so many leagues above Maki and what she could do because she didn't have the ability to use curse energy. That he was just able to stomp her. So
that's true.
All right, your guys' thoughts on Toge, the cursed words user, not curse words, cursed speech user.
I have mixed feelings on this character because he can only talk in like sushi ingredients. It's hard to get, like, you only get these like emotional moments with him or implied moments, or where someone's talking for him. So there was one moment where he actually gets run away without hurting himself or using his curse, which for him is huge that he was able to say those 2 words. But of course it was a dire situation. I liked it. I liked his when he took Yuta to go to the mall, right? To fight the cursed spirits. I don't know. Him not being able to talk kind of does a disservice for his character, I think. for me.
Jeremy?
I like it as a concept. I think it's really cool to explore that, but I do see where you're coming from at the same time, where you can never really develop anything with him other than just like body language and inference and, you know, what other people say about the things that he's must be thinking. And the show actually spends quite a bit of time on that. Like the main character trying to figure out what he's saying is a factor that keeps coming up. And even plays a part in the combat sequence at the mall.
Bonito flakes.
Yeah, or kelp.
Salmon.
Yeah. But again, like I love the idea. It's something I don't think I've seen anywhere else. And that intrigues me. But I don't think it can be done very well in a movie. As far as like long term, really developing it, it needs a season to really hit it hard or more.
I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot.
Okay, I haven't seen it in anime. There.
I'm saying that to say I think it can be done. I don't think they do it well with Toge. I think, like when he said salmon, I'm like, I think that's a positive, but I don't. And maybe it's because I watched it in Japanese this time. I think I watched English dub first time, but maybe I'm not picking up the voice inflection because it's a different language. That maybe that's creating an extra barrier, or they just did it poorly. So I agree, but I do think it can be done, and can be
they just
done
need
well.
Vin Diesel to get in there and.
Right. It also doesn't help that half his face, like, because you're right, we need facial expression and we need body language, and he's like very covered up and very stoic and hardly moves at all when he talks. So we're also not getting any other way to communicate with him. Also, they're like, hey, he's like the most powerful of us. He's like super strong. He can go on missions on his own. He's so cool. He uses one word and he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, he's Glass Cannon.
Yeah.
I don't
Derringer.
remember that from the series, so maybe he gets past that or strengthens that. But that seems like a huge liability that he gets one shot and then he has to have like NyQuil with him.
Not just that. What I don't understand is we've got multiple characters that use cursed energy around their bodies to enhance their abilities, right? For instance, Toji is able to use cursed energy around his fists, and when he punches, it doesn't wear out his skin or his muscles. But we have
Who's Toji?
Itadori.
No, you mean
Yuji? Oh,
Yuji.
Yuji.
Yuji,
Okay.
not Toji. Yuji.
Okay, gotcha.
But when he says a word to like defeat his enemies, it's like a one-shot thing. His throat hurts. He's bleeding from the mouth. It doesn't make sense within the rules that you've already set up for the different curse users. Like that, you're talking about. You know, there's the girl with the hammer. If her hammer were to break every time she used the curse energy, I mean, that might make sense, but it doesn't, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I know that they tried to sort of justify it a little bit by saying it depends on who he's aiming at, right? If the cursed creature is like way higher in power, then it's going to have that effect. But he was just yelling at like a swarm of really low level fish monsters, and it still made him hoarse. Another thing that kind of bugs me about his power is that just regular medicine is enough to fix it. You know, it's like, oh, there's my Dayquil. I can scream at monsters again. And that, I don't know. I would have liked it more if there was some kind of Jujutsu Kaisen medicine that he had to use to fix his throat or something that was infused or prepared by a healer or something. But
or if
just regular over the counter.
Yeah,
what's that?
The fact that he knows he needs it. Why aren't you bringing like a 10-pack with you in your coat? Part of it.
And if it's that good. But then at the same time, part of me also wonders, because I know in the past, like if I had a really, really bad sore throat or something and my vocal cords were really messed up, but I had to sing, you could use like a lemon and you just squeeze the lemon juice and you swallow that, and it like softens up your vocal cords and makes it so that you can use them, but only for a few, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you're screwed again. So I kind of wonder if that's what the medicine is doing, is it's just like soothing them momentarily, and he's got like a little tiny window. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities, but I just think it could have been done better.
And then there's Panda.
Okay, Panda's awesome.
He's a panda.
Yeah, and he's amazing.
Yeah. And he has the best question in the anime. Do you like big or do you like small?
Maki, you have a chance.
That's right. That one came out of nowhere. I was trying to figure out where is he going with this? Oh, I'm just really dull and thick here.
Panda playing Matchmaker is incredibly cute in this.
Yeah.
And they don't give him much to do, but I just love the idea that there's just a talking sentient panda bear. There's a stuffed panda bear, but a panda bear that walks around hanging out with these guys.
And his fight scene's amazing at the end.
Yeah. Well, what did he say? I saw that coming, and he's like, "You were supposed to." And I was like, "Okay, I like that a lot." That is a really good line. Also, they mentioned that he's a corpse mutation. I think. I don't know if they mentioned it in season 1, but that really intrigued me because I still am trying to figure out like what is Panda. Like,
they explained him in season 1.
Yeah, they did the whole thing. He's created by the principal who can like animate dolls with souls.
That's right.
And Panda's like his biggest one he ever made.
So why did they call him a corpse?
I think they had to use corpse part.
No, it's the technique that.
That's just what the principal calls it. Kind of thing?
So the technique to bring him to life is called the corpse mutation. So it basically means anything humanoid shape, whether it be a corpse or a doll, he can use that cursed energy on it.
So we have our.
So yes, he's a necromancer too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking, man. Imagine if he like went into our world and retained some of his necromancy powers, and you know.
Hey, Troy, did you have something to say?
Let's go on this tangent.
So.
Oh, there was one other thing. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
All the students gather in the classroom. They get to meet Yuta. They don't like him. They're like, hey, he doesn't seem like anything special. He was clearly bullied. We don't want him. And that means they get to meet Rika, too. And Gojo points out, hey, he's protected by an evil cursed spirit and could kill you, all of you. So let's be nice to Yuta. And so they do.
Well, they weren't particularly friendly to him at first, but then they felt Rika's cursed energy, but they didn't know it was Rika. And so that's when they decided to be angry at or like nasty to him and like throw a spear next to his head.
We also get a flashback of Yuta and the human Rika as childhood friends playing in the sandbox, and she gives him an engagement ring that she has, which he then gives to her so that they are...
Are they both sick in a hospital?
At one point. We don't see that yet, but yes, at one point. That's how they met, in the hospital. And then we get a flash and she's been hit by a car and she died, and then we see her turning into a spirit, or literally this pile of blood on the ground, and her hands come out and grab him, and her twist up monster face comes out.
That was cool. That was really well done.
And this shows Rika latching onto him, thus being cursed. And then Gojo pairs him with Maki to go on a mission where they have to go to a school. He puts up what's called a veil here, but I thought they were called barriers, and I don't know if that just because they hadn't got the language right in the original one shot and they didn't feel like changing it for the movie.
Seems to be interchangeable.
Yeah, so he called it a veil, but there's barriers, there's veils, same thing.
It's actually just a lesser domain.
It is. We see Maki kill a couple of spirits, and then they're in the school, and these spirits are all so terrified of Yuta that they're literally hiding inside desks and behind windows. And this is where she's like, well, what grade are you? And he's like, I don't know what a grade is. She's like, give me the ID card they gave you. And she sees, and it says she's a special grade. She is a grade 3, which is still good, but special grade doesn't mean like over 9,000. It just means you're off the scale. But we have a scale, and if you can't be on that scale, you're in the special class.
So that's like over 9,000.
Yeah, technically, but not 10,000. Just we don't know.
Especially if you have emotions attached.
Wait, yeah, like over 9 billion.
Well, do we want to get into that? Because you guys kept mentioning that. Okay, but we do need to talk about emotions.
I think we do it when we get to the end.
Okay.
I think it's probably the best place to do it.
Okay. What's important to know is he's special grade, and Rika is also special grade. Separately, they are both special grade. She's a special grade curse, special grade. Guess what I learned today, guys? That
What?
A grade 1 sorcerer is stronger than a grade 1 curse, because your grade as a sorcerer is based on the type of curse you can kill. So if you are a grade 1 sorcerer, you can kill grade 1 curses. So
if you're a special grade, you can kill a special grade.
No, because special grade is off the charts. So nothing matters once you get into special grade.
Okay.
It's just nebulous over in the special area.
It really is.
But there are only 4 of them.
There are only 4 of them.
And that includes him. So there's only 3 others.
That's great. And all but 1 are in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're eaten by a giant curse. And inside the belly of the curse, they find hurt children. And Maki basically yells at Yuta to get his confidence up, and so he summons Rika on purpose. This is the first time Rika has fully manifested ever. It's like we see documented. Rika manifests for the first time on this date. But she just starts tearing the curse apart, and Yuta carries out Maki and the 2 children, carries them out of the veil, and Gojo says, good job. And then the higher-ups call Gojo and say, are you crazy? Gonna kill so many people. And Gojo's like, it's fine.
I got this.
And they remind him he hasn't been spared from his execution. It's just been delayed. And he says, well, if that's the case, just know that I'm going to side with Yuta. Because Gojo don't give up.
Yep.
We also see them at the hospital where Yuta talks about how he wants to break Rika's curse. That is his goal for all of this. He just wants to set Rika free. That is the end of Act 1. We see a mysterious man pick up Yuta's ID at the school. And we start with our training montage. So about 3 months have passed, and Gojo gives Yuta a katana that he can use to channel Rika's energy into, because it's such powerful curse energy. It would make the weapon very powerful and do a lot of damage. So he then starts learning how to fight with katana by training against Maki, who beats the crap out of him over and over. We get the great scene with Panda asking about boobs and trying to play matchmaker.
Mm-hmm.
We get Toge being sent on an assignment because he is a grade 2 and is allowed to go to this assignment, and he is asked to bring Yuta along to observe. When they get there, it's like a broken down mall, like we mentioned, and there's this swarm of fish that are curses, and he kills them with one shot. But then a very powerful curse shows up after they can't leave the barrier. It's supposed to be their barrier, so they should be able to go through it no problem. Again, I don't feel like the movie does a great job of explaining that.
No, I was confused because Gojo said, oh, the barrier is very easy to break from the inside, but he never explained if that meant that you had to do something, in order to break it, or if you just walk through it. And we don't see them walk through the veil. And so when they came up to the Veil this time, I thought, oh, okay, they're not allowed to leave yet. Like, it's easy to get out of if you're supposed to get out of it. Didn't even occur to me that the Veil was not made. It was a second Veil. Didn't even occur.
In the way Yuta even words it, it sounds like, oh, I guess the mission isn't done, so we have to stay in here.
Yeah.
That's what I had originally thought too, is that, oh, so the Veil keeps everyone in until the mission is complete and they killed the wrong thing. Well, that is not what is happening here. They've been trapped inside a second Veil.
And they play with this throughout season 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, Veils are huge. You can put so many rules on Veils. It's like coding. Veils are like coding, and this, or this.
Yeah.
And in season 2 we have Veilception. So.
Oh no, Veils within Veils. Oh boy.
Yeah, within Veils.
Anyway, this new curse attacks them, and they have to run and hide because Toge voices her, and he dropped his cough medicine that we had talked about earlier. He's going to go fight it.
Pocket full of them.
Yep.
All right.
Yuta decides to help, and he goes and actually does battle with the thing. Barely holding his own, but manages to get the cough medicine over to Toge, who is able to crush the monster with a single word, and they're able to leave. Again, the mysterious man is watching all this. And we actually see Gojo investigating the scene afterwards, and he recognizes who's behind it and knows that it was Geto. And this is where we are properly introduced to our villain of the story, Geto. I want to start with Jeremy on this one for very important reasons. Jeremy, your thoughts on Geto?
To me, he seemed very much like I'm evil because I want to be the dictator that rules everything, and humans are a lesser species. I'm going to wipe them out. I've seen it so many times in anime and outside of anime. It's not a deep, compelling motivation, but it still works. It's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with it. It's just not spectacular. Like, I'm not enthralled by the character. I find him to be very run-of-the-mill, routine, standard villain. But at the same time, his approach, his charisma, just the disdain, like the degree of disdain that he has for humans is almost comical sometimes. And so that is entertaining. And his method of execution, like, there's a couple times where I'm just completely bewildered by his decisions. They're very bad decisions. Like, for instance, why didn't he just throw out more monsters or curses and finish Yuta off and take over the curse right then? Like, he could have just done that right there, and there would have been no reason to go any further. And
Gojo would have killed them all.
But the whole point was that if once he got a hold of Rika, he would be able to stand up against Gojo. That was the whole point of him trying to get him.
Gojo's way faster than him.
Yeah, but Gojo wasn't there.
He wasn't in this conversation.
Oh, at the mall.
At the mall.
Listen. Oh, you're right. Okay.
There was zero reason.
I think he's experimenting. Yeah, he doesn't fully know what's going on. He's like, what is up with this curse?
I think he knows that there's a special grade out there, but he had no. I think this was more recon.
Well, he knew that Rita. He knew that Rika was Yuta's. He was there to see Yuta release her, and he knew she was special grade. But you're right, he doesn't know like the full extent of her power. So I guess maybe he was just evaluating whether it would be enough to be worth it, because Gojo would come hunt him down if he killed the kid and Rika wasn't powerful. I guess that's reasonable. I guess I can see that. But then as far as his other methodology goes, it just doesn't sound like he was ready for the fight that they were instigating. His move was interesting, but it just does not, like, it relies on so much chance for the bad guys to win. And it would have been better if he just kept on being a fake Buddhist, collecting curses. Nothing was stopping him. He's doing a great service. Everybody's happy, even though he hates the humans. And he could have gotten a whole lot more powerful from that over time. So I don't know. I don't have any real complaints other than that. but he's nothing special to me.
He's only as powerful as his most powerful curse he has in his cabinet. Right?
Well,
And volume.
He can combine them.
Matter. Quantity matters for him too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he both released all of them, and then later he combined 4,000 into one, and that seemed to, at least in his opinion, make him way more powerful.
And he, in my opinion, would have won this fight if he hadn't dumped most of his spirits into the other battles to distract Gojo.
Mm.
He actually hugely handicaps himself before going into this fight, thinking that's the chess move, right? I gotta get Gojo away, so I gotta give up all this power over here. Again, big theme of Jujutsu Kaisen, what you sacrifice for what you get. But that I want to say, from me and Jason, who know the backstory, because that is the start of season 2, is his backstory. That is a fascinating take on the character, and probably exactly where I was when I first watched this movie too. I was just like, okay, so he's just a mustache twiddling guy.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah.
Especially since we've seen him in season 1, kind of just standing in the background, hanging out with her spirits, and then, okay, what is going on with this guy? He was very confusing to me my first watch.
Now Troy was kind enough to tell me, because I told him I was so far into season 2. He's like, okay, hold up. Once you get out of the flashback, you need to go watch this movie. And I'm so glad I did, because I didn't feel that you guys did. Because like I saw the backstory, then I saw the movie, and I was just like, oh man, this is what it's turned into. So yeah,
you saw the character in his arc. That would make sense.
And then what happens afterwards in the rest of season 2. So, yeah, I think, yeah, we'll talk about more about how this movie fits in, but like, this is definitely could have been season 2 of 3 instead of a movie.
I think for me, for Geto, at this point, fascinating, tragic character. One of those villains that has a really good point, but has gone the wrong way. To me, he's Magneto. He's like, Magneto wants to save the mutants. Oh, that's a really, really great way to do things. And he's like, yeah, by killing everything else. Oh, okay. No, that's genocide. So
he's definitely one of these bad guys that takes a quote unquote good stance and just kind of takes it to its wrong logical conclusion, like kind of ignoring other logical outcomes and just go, no, but what if we go all the way? Like all the way.
It's like you can't solve a problem, so just eliminate the problem.
Well, yeah, it's like the fear of
don't need
fear
it
of
anymore.
AI going, how does AI solve humans hurting each other? Well, if we get rid of the humans, they don't hurt each other. So
that's right. No more problem.
The movie does do a crazy thing. So this isn't a spoiler because it's in the movie. They play audio from the flashback that will air in season 2 of Geto saying his original philosophy out loud, that the strong exist to serve the weak, to protect them. Mm-hmm. And never elaborate on that or talk about like why he said that, or is that something he said yesterday? When did he say that? It just drops that line, and I was like, that's insane. That's insane that you dropped that line with no context, no reason to, just that little tidbit. Again, having seen the flashback, that's a huge thing. It's his starting point, but why did the movie add that line in the movie? I don't get it.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was assuming that it was like, okay, so at one point in time, this character was like, he did a 180 basically, but it felt cheap to me because it was like, oh, okay, you're adding depth to this character with a single phrase that I don't know any of the context for. Bleh, I don't like that. But I guess that, again, it means that order really matters here, and that the value of this kind of seems like it depends on already having consumed certain other media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's crazy what the context adds to this movie. And my thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, having watched all of season 2 now, I've seen everything that's anime, and again, every manga. Jujutsu Kaisen is like, I'm going to show you some cool fights, and I have really cool story, but I'm not really interested in telling you that cool story. If you figure it out, great for you. I just want really good depth to these fights that I'm going to show you these awesome fights. And I'm a little torn on it because I enjoy going down the rabbit hole, and there is something just cool. I got popcorn, show me just some really cool fights, and I like that it's not happening just because there are reasons. But don't I also deserve for you to tell me those reasons? But I don't want Naruto 20 episodes of flashback before the fight happens either. So
there's a fantastic example of this without getting spoilery of season 2, where the big bad guy of season 1, Sukuna, fights a certain spirit. There's very little context given. There's very little for the reason for these two to be fighting, but it's nearly an episode long, and it's amazing. But it's like, why is this happening?
Right. It's some of the best animation of the season. Your eyes bleed, but if you haven't paid very close attention to details of why every character got to that point, it's just like, smashing action figures together awesomely. And the movie does that. It's built into this movie too, very much so. Where again, when I first watched it, I'm like, that was very pretty. You smashed those action figures together very well. Why?
Yeah,
they hit each other.
You just have broken toys now. I don't understand the purpose.
He's so right. Anyway, okay, so now we meet Geto properly, where he, like Jeremy mentioned, he's running kind of a con where people come and he eats their cursed spirits. Oh, it doesn't show him eat it. By the way,
it does
Geto,
one.
Does he actually?
One time, and it's in the chibi form when he's like telling his plan. That's the only time.
You know that that spirit he turns into like a big orb in his palm.
Yeah,
he has to swallow that down like it. It's the most disturbing thing to watch whenever he eats.
It doesn't get smaller.
It's so gross. His throat enlarges.
And in the second season he talks about how gross it is, and he describes like a sweaty sock that's been dipped in like feces. Like, he describes how terrible every time he does this is.
No wonder he's just like really grouchy and cynical. He's like, this is what I have to do for my special grade, you jerks.
So, right. Whereas Gojo is like, I have beautiful eyes. What kind?
Exactly.
So yeah, he has people come, and when they have cursed spirits, haunting them, he literally just snatches them up, eats the cursed spirit, thus powering him up. Or he's running cons on rich people. He even explains, there's the people who bring me spirits, and there's the people who bring me money. And then the rich guy who shows up complaining, he's like, you're out of money? Well, then you're dead. And literally just murders him right there.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty money.
Anybody else have any problems?
Yeah. I got the impression that those were creatures that basically he sicked on the rich man to make money. That's so much worse. Wow.
You gotta make money.
Then he goes and he meets with what he calls his family, his group of followers. And in Jujutsu Kaisen, if you work with the schools and the Jujutsu Society, you're a sorcerer. If you don't, you're a curse user and you suck. But they're really the exact same thing. So these are just a bunch of curse users, but they're the same thing. And he's like, hey guys, everyone hop in my pelican. And they fly to Jujutsu High School, get out the entrance, and he's talking like a guy who's visiting his high school for the first time in 10 years. Like, nothing changed. This place sucks. But he runs into our main characters, Yuta, and all the other students, and they're like, you shouldn't be here. No one's allowed to just walk into here. And he's there to meet Yuta, and he's like, hi, Yuta, how you doing? I want to kill all the human beings so bad. Would you be my helper? And Gojo shows up, and then Geto starts making fun of Maki. Again, pointing out she's the failure of the Zenin clan, which is important, but that was explained back in season 1 what she is. And this upsets Yuta, who's like, I don't know anything about your plan or what you want, but you just insulted my friend, so back off. So Geto says, okay, I'm here to declare war. On December 24th, I'm going to attack 2 different regions in Tokyo. Do your best to stop me. We're going to go get crepes because I promised the girls crepes. And I'll see you. And Gojo's like, why do you think I'll let you leave? And he's like, I got a ton of spirits. Bye-bye. Ride the pelican.
How are the girls so stupid that they love crepes from this specific place, but they're okay with killing the people that make the crepes?
They are endlessly infatuated with Gojo because we get a very fast flash of him saving them.
Geto.
Right.
Geto saved them.
Yeah, Geto saved them. Which we learn more about that particular incident in the flashback of season 2, which you don't have that info, which I wish you did because it would make a lot more sense.
What?
However,
they do mention it out loud. They mention the incident.
How they treat us in the sticks. So basically,
they also say one time Geto killed 100 people. Just
right.
Boom. And that's all tied together.
But like in that quick flashback, we see the girls in a cage, and he saves them from the cage from being beaten and abused, and so I think it's more of an emotional connection than a logical one, and I think also they probably have a hatred for people because of the way they were treated.
That makes sense.
But you're right. The first thought that watching it a second time, the first thought that went through my head was, well, that's a person making those crepes for you, and you want them dead. You won't have crepes anymore.
Yeah. The cognitive dissonance there is crazy.
Christmas Eve arrives. Jujutsu High is prepared for war and called in all their friends. And we start with Geto's. He sets off his plan, so he has the 2 armies of spirits that he has unleashed in the 2 areas. But his real plan, of course, is to go back to the school now that Yuta's left there alone, and he will kill Yuta and absorb Rika. He mentions he always lied back when he was in school that he could only absorb spirits that have never been attached to anyone. But that's not true. If he kills whoever they're attached to, he can then still absorb it. That was something he's kept close to the vest his whole life. So, yeah, he's got to kill Yuta. And then we get a nice discussion. So Maki finds Yuta in class, just sitting in the classroom. There's no class because everyone's off to fight the war. And they have their nice talk. And she kind of mentions the Zenin clan, how she doesn't have any cursed energy and she's a failure, but she's doing it out of spite. She's going to screw that clan. I'm going to show them I'm the best. Really piss them off. And he offers to help her, and she gets all flushed and calls him a Baka, which I appreciated. But then Geto attacks, and we see Maki confront him, find him in the school. And at the same time, while the battle is happening, Gojo gets an update on Yuta's past and immediately grabs Panda and Toge and teleports them back to the high school. When they get there,
I was not aware he had teleportation abilities or the ability to teleport others.
Me neither.
Like that was surprising.
I don't remember that.
That's not his curse technique. I have no idea how he did this. I'm sure there's a way, maybe even a tool that lets him do it, but
probably there's a spaceship in the sky that teleports the
cursed spaceship.
It runs on emotion.
You gotta add curse to everything. There's a cursed spaceship in the sky.
And there's a cursed Data with a cursed John Luke.
So here's the thing about someone who's spoiled a lot for himself about Jujutsu Kaisen. I know there is a lore accurate answer to how he did this. I will never be able to find it out. But I promise you, if someone went to the writer and asked them, that the writer would be like, here's the answer. And like, when did you tell us that? I didn't. It's not important. But I did, in my head, come up with a plan for how they did this.
Right, but how'd you like the fight scene after that, though?
Right? Wasn't it cool? I watched some history about Gege. They were like their first manga ever was Bleach, so they were heavily inspired by Bleach, and they just grew up wanting to do manga and loving all the different shonen series. They're really close friends with the My Hero Academia creator. No one knows who they are. The one time they appeared in public, they were dressed as Mekamaru, so no one's seen their face. No one
That's
even
kinda
knows
perfect,
what
actually.
if they're a man or a woman. Yeah, it's great. Doesn't care about the details. Watch the cool fights. So yeah, Panda and Toge get to the school and they start attacking Geto. They combo team together. Toge, another thing, Toge hits Geto with an attack, and then Geto is fine. Again, I know there's an accurate reason, a lore accurate reason. I can't tell you what it is. I have no idea how Geto just shrugged off this attack. But he does. And he gets up and he beats all three of them. And then Yuta comes outside, and he's super pissed off. So he summons Rika. Again, the only second time Rika's ever been summoned, which is shown across the screen. They grab all three of his friends, and they jump up to a tower, and then he hits them with that healing energy, which again, second time through, I'm like, no way. That's such a big deal. First time, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's a thing. We all just can shoot energy and heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And then so then we get our big battle. Guys, I did a really good job of breaking this movie down into its 3 acts. The start of the third act is when December 24th arrives. It's the longest part of the movie. It's almost half the movie, and it's 90% a fight.
Right.
That's what Jujutsu Kaisen is about. I get why some people are like, it's really shallow. I get even where Jeremy's coming from with all his complaints. They are 100% accurate. This series is like, I just wanted to show you cool fights. And
I'm pretty sure the only large lore drop in this entire last act is I forget what his name is, but he tells Gojo about the rope that he's going to use.
Yeah,
like that seems like the biggest lore drop.
Right. So that guy's name is Miguel.
Miguel, that's
Uh-huh.
right.
Apparently, he is now an important character. I didn't know that. Yeah, he has a special rope. I do know in Japan. Outside of Japan, cursed spirits and sorcerers are much less common. It's a much bigger deal in Japan. So the fact that he's from another country and has this special sacred rope that his tribe made or whatever, and he said, Gojo says that rope is diminishing my powers and slowing me down. Never explains how. I have no idea what the rope freaking does.
Nor does it seem that way during the fight.
No,
Right?
no, it doesn't. It doesn't seem like a flaw or a weakness he has to solve. Like he just says, "Oh man, this is causing problems," and then moving on.
This felt very much like a Superman beats up the bad guy moment. Because
And it became a meme. This is this classic meme of like throwing hands and Gojo just goes up and punches him like 20 times.
I did love like when he appeared above Gojo and then like Gojo switched around and then we saw Miguel and he's like, "Whoa!" And then Gojo like grabs him and slams him into a barrier. Ouch! Like just the way the voice actor was doing it in the sub was so well done. It was just perfect. Made me laugh so hard.
Did you guys get that Miguel is a mercenary? That he's been hired by
No.
Geto and is not part of his group?
yes,
No.
yeah, because he not part of his group. I wasn't quite sure, but I did know that he was there for money because he talked about during the 12. He needed if he held him off for the 12 minutes, he'd get his quota.
Yeah, but so did the braid lady.
Yeah, she's the worst. We don't talk about Mei Mei.
She's not the worst.
She is the
like
worst,
her
and
hair.
you aren't that far enough in the anime to know why.
Okay,
Sir.
fair enough. But she didn't talk about particularly. I don't know if she used the word quota or not.
Quota.
She was there as a job. Well, I guess
She even said
because she
I'll
was
get my
offered money.
bonus.
Okay, so Mei Mei,
But
is
she's
the
an employee.
teacher- Yeah,
Not a
Mei is the
mercenary.
teacher from the other school, but her character is that everything is about money, and if she's not being paid, she won't help the fight. She's on the good guy team.
But see, they didn't explain any of
No,
that.
they don't.
All they did was show that she's out there, and they're telling us that, like, hey, all these curses act in different ways, and everybody's power functions in a different way. And so now you've got this lady, and she's leaping around with a battle axe, saying, "Oh, I got this many. I'm gonna get more, and then I'll get my bonus." And I'm like, "Is that a power upgrade? Is that like is that how your curse works? You met your
No,
quota, and now you're gonna like boom go even
She's just the
higher,
worst.
right?" And so then when
Also, where's
when I
her
heard
brother? Never
You don't know what you're saying. You need to stop.
So when I heard Miguel say, oh, I've got to hold him off for this many minutes, I was like, oh, because that's the plan. Like, you have to do it because that's Ghetto's plan. It never occurred to me that he was actually paid with money as.
Yeah, he said specifically quota.
Sure,
So
but
the reason
explain
I
them.
ask is because just like Jason said, there is a line that technically explains this, but I definitely didn't catch it the first time because it just like Mei's, it feels like a throwaway line.
I heard the line, but the line didn't
Right.
mean money to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the reason I asked. Jujutsu Kaisen just is not good at explaining things, or like I said earlier, doesn't care. But the line is there. It's technically said. It's technically accurate to say it's not even a spoiler to say he's a mercenary because, and there's a couple of things that happen at the end where they're explaining stuff that happened with Rika and Yuta, where it's very similar, where they say like one line, and how you interpret it depends if you understand the lore or not. So that's what I wanted to ask. Okay, back to the Yuta fight. He gets to use Toge's power, even though he creates a megaphone, and I have no idea how that worked.
Well, his own
Rika
vocal
made it
cords
for
couldn't
him.
do it. So
He didn't make it. Rika did.
Okay, so Rika, right?
that was Ghetto's interpretation. I think he's probably right, but like I don't know.
No, literally, she hands it to him.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
He defeats a mountain of cursed monsters with that. Geto gets overwhelmed. He mentions how Yuta's getting stronger. Let's get to the end of the fight and we'll talk about the fight. Geto does his ultimate move. He brings out a top class, what is it called? Special grade curse that he has. And he does what in the subtitle said Maelstrom. But that's not the right technique. His ultimate technique is Uzumaki, which is what he's actually doing, which is combining a bunch of curses into a thing. So I was very confused by that. And then he's blasting that, and Yuta.
Tomato to me.
Fair enough.
Vortex.
Okay, the reason I love the Uzumaki is later they draw it just like the horror Ito series Uzumaki about the people who get twisted into spirals. It's inspired by that, and I love that series. So it's important to me. It's called Uzumaki. I got upset when they called Maelstrom. All right, Yuta makes a deal with Rika. He's saying, if you give me all your power, I will die with you. Again, in Jujutsu Kaisen, if you make a contract, if you give something, you can get something in return. So he has access to all our power at once. They fire a special beam cannon. It destroys Geto and defeats him. Destroys all his curses and defeats Geto. Thoughts on the fight? I know we're going to get into it here. Let's go.
Beautifully done. I'll get that out of the way. As far as scaling, it did seem rather fast for Yuta to get to Gato's level, let alone surpass him. But it was satisfying to watch.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly where I'm at. Like, was it pretty? Yeah. Did you get all the adrenaline? Yes. Was it a satisfying fight? Well, as far as fights go, yes. It was a cool fight. But I mean, the last thing that I really saw was him sparring with Maki and not beating her. And yet she got trounced off screen because it was so bad by Geto. And now Yuta is just like leaping around like a madman, black sparks flying everywhere, which I didn't even remember that that's a technique. I just knew, okay, this is really being emphasized. There has to be some kind of value to this. There's got to be a reason why they're emphasizing this.
His sword breaks at one point, and he scores a black flash with a punch, which again is a critical hit and not something you can do on purpose. It has to be perfect timing with your punch.
Yeah. And I'm starting to remember like bits and pieces about that. But it has been a long time since I saw season 1. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, clearly he is moving so fast, and he's actually holding his own against this guy. Why? Where did this come from? He's using other people's techniques.
Yeah, the using other people's techniques thing is odd. But
he's
I'm
pulling
sure Troy
healing
knows more
out of his butt. I don't know where he learned healing.
Gato said something about you can only do that if you can use reverse curse energy techniques.
Who taught him? Did he just suddenly in this moment, he's like, I'm inspired. I need something, therefore it is here. What is that called?
Improvisation?
Deus Ex Machina.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
That is what that is called. So that was driving me nuts.
The only thing that gives it a little bit of credence is Gato did take a lot of damage from Panda and Toge.
Yeah. And again, has depowered himself a lot with the war that he started.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the combat prowess of Yuta was impressive there, especially at the end.
The moment that stood out to me where I was like, that seems an insane thing to do with what we've seen you be able to do, is when he jumps off the tower onto a electrical pole and lands with the 1 foot on the pole. And I'm like, not at any point have I thought you ninja enough to jump onto way up in the air a pole. That was my one thought. I was like, that seems a huge progression.
Yeah. Well, and I totally get, Geto even said, oh man, you must be really feeling the adrenaline now. All your senses must be tingling. You must be especially perceptive. You're in the middle of throes of battle, right? And I get that too. That certainly he's swept up in it, and he's in sync, and everything's flowing. Plus he's unlocked Rika's power, and it's now all his and everything. It just, it didn't make sense to me. Something just doesn't click for that to me. While it is visually appealing and visually satisfying and hits all the beats of what a battle needs to do, the justification for it is not strong enough in my head.
There are multiple justifications that actually happen in the fight that the movie, of course, doesn't tell you are happening. The first is, and one I've been waiting on because you guys keep mentioning it. We always make the joke, I'm a stronger because of my emotions. What the Jujutsu Kaisen power system is literally based on emotions. Only negative emotions, though. Your negative emotions create cursed energy, which thus make you stronger. So,
but because he can use reverse.
No, that's not.
No.
Reverse.
I like where you're going with that.
Well, I was saying, if he can use reverse cursed energy, he can reverse the negative into positive because he loves her so much.
And the positive into negative. All emotion then becomes fuel for him.
To create, you cannot create positive energy on its own. You have to take cursed energy and times it to cursed energy, because negative and negative creates a positive. I know.
That is explicitly not true.
That's how Geto explained it. Or Gojo explains it.
That's amazing.
That's how positive energy works. You take two negatives and you smash them together, and that'll create your positive. But you can't get stronger from happiness, and he can't get stronger from love. But this is part of Gojo's plan. The reason he sends Panda and Toge is to lose. And they even call this out. That he knew that Yuta would see them hurt and get angry and thus get stronger.
Oh, that's right, because he really hasn't...
Level?
He hasn't used the word hate this entire movie.
Also, I 100% agree. The last time we saw him training, he barely was able to do anything. But about 9 months have passed, and we just weren't shown him growing. Also, if you land a Black Flash, you do get a stat boost. That's just part of a Black Flash.
How long does it last?
I don't know. I honestly don't. Long enough for this fight, I'm sure.
So
I think,
is that why Yuji's so powerful?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the biggest thing, the whole reason he wins is because of the contract he forms. He literally, because
Which he doesn't have to honor.
Right. Yes. Technically.
Quite the contract.
Contracts are squiggly like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the contract's broken as soon as the curse is broken because he's no longer going with the curse.
She can kill him if she wants to. She has the right, and there's nothing he can do about it. But
Right.
she chooses not to.
Because she holds no animus towards him.
What he really gave up without realizing it. Okay, so the fight's over. Gojo shows up and explains what happened, which is that you cursed her. You're the powerful supreme being. You cursed her. You're so powerful. And by saying we can die, for the first time ever, he was allowing her to die, thus breaking the curse. And that's what the contract really did. And then again, though, because of the contract, she has a right to claim his life if she wants, but she loves him so she doesn't.
But yeah, that was actually a decent twist I didn't see coming, is that they replay her getting hit by the car and him looking at her going, don't die, don't die, don't die. And so she doesn't.
Yeah, that was cool.
I don't think any of those things fully explain. I don't think it takes away that feel that you guys have of like, this just is just kind of escalated super quick. I kind of write that off to the movie. We do find out Yuta's a prodigy, but it's not said here that he's a prodigy, so there's no reason for us to be assuming.
He's related to Gojo.
He's related to Gojo, which is one of the strongest families. But
I thought that it was because he was drawing on Rika's power and she is infinite, and then that creates a loop because I was assuming that her power is actually fueled from him. Like, yeah, it's his curse energy that's kind of right. Her, which means he has infinite curse energy.
Right.
Which I don't like that idea. Like, now we have two infinite powers here. So, Gojo and him.
So he's near infinite. He's not actually, it is finite. Whereas Gojo's, because of his 6 eyes, his constantly refreshes. So he just doesn't run out. Yuta actually has more cursed energy than Gojo, but Gojo is a everlasting battery that keeps rebuilding itself.
Regen is really high.
Right.
Gotcha.
Some other things I want to call out. You know how I said in prequels I don't like when they explain or show like how you got your boots, how you got your gun? Well, we get a scene of Nanami hitting his 4 black flashes in a row. The record that he talks about having hit, that happens in this movie. And I'm sure I would bet my bottom dollar that it was not in the manga, that this is a anime movie only extra scene to be like, hey, let's put in that Nanami 4-hit combo.
Wait, is Nanami the glasses guy with the suit and the tie?
The cow blade.
What is it? It's cow blade?
It's a stick that he wrapped a cloth that looks like a cow around. I call it the cow blade.
Oh, okay. I knew that he was important, and I remember his character design from season 1, but I didn't remember anything about him.
It's just one of my favorite characters. No worries. Also, we see the students of the other school, and again, this feels like something they added to the movie to tie it more into season 1 and kind of make the world feel connected.
I did like the cameos. That was cool. It was like I got to say, I know those characters.
Except for Todo shows up and doesn't do a boogie woogie, and boogie woogie is my favorite curse technique. I think it's the coolest thing, the clapping and the swapping. It's so fun. Teleporting's always kind of fun, and but the fact that he has to clap and it kind of comes with like its own beat, and so I was kind of bummed they didn't do the clap. We also see Gojo run into Geto, and Jeremy, what do you think happened here?
Oh, what I think is that Geto was dying, and Gojo was basically just telling him, like, you were my best friend, I'll always remember you that way, or something like that. I'm guessing that based on the words that he exchanged later with Yuta, I think.
Yep.
Where he's like, oh, I've got one best friend, or I've got a best friend, the one and only. He's the one that got your card back. And I was like, okay, so that's probably what you said. And that's why there was such shock on Ghetto's face that after everything, he was still, my best friend, whatever. And then he died. And I even heard like there was a swoosh or a ching or something, which sounded like Gojo killed him.
Gojo finishes him off. Yeah.
That's
what
accurate.
I thought.
I did not get that the first time I watched this. I was like, but he's the bad guy of season 1. So what just happened? And yeah, you heard the sound, but you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. I just wanted to see it. I didn't want to say it if it wasn't apparent enough.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Yeah. Rika goes to heaven, I guess. Yuta has broken the curse. He gets his ID card back, and he joins his classmates in the snow. And then we get an after credit scene where Yuta is with Miguel, the guy with the rope from earlier, in Africa eating, and Gojo pays them a visit, and we have no idea why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time no see. But okay.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And whatever he's eating looks delicious.
Yeah,
I
dude.
just like, I want that.
Yep. I was also cracking up when Miguel looked up and he's like, oh, why are you here? I'm like, oh, you remember that beatdown, don't you?
All right, that's our ending. Any other thoughts before we go to final review?
I think this felt very much like if you had took, say, Bleach and started in season 3 and then went back to season 1. Like, that's kind of what this movie feels like. It makes sense in the arc of the story. And I think it's very much written for fans keeping up with what's going on.
Except it wasn't.
Well, for me, it was.
Right,
but at the time that it was released, I can see what you mean. Right. Yeah.
I
love
guess,
the. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I love the idea that this was a standalone piece of fiction that an entire world was built around, and that it then gets brought back and integrated into the whole. I think that's really cool. I think that's really good storytelling on its own to be able to do that and weave that story in. And especially if these characters like Yuta become very important characters in the main storyline. That's cool. That's a really good skill. And it was entertaining too. So, I do have to at least give kudos to that. Like it's the same thing with like games. I've often thought about like if I want to make a game, I've got like all these different ideas of different kinds of games, but I don't want to have to come up with an entire backstory for every single one. So I'd want to create like one universe and all these different varieties of games that come at it from different angles, and that would be really cool.
It's funny you mentioned that because knowing that this was like pilot before it became movie, very much makes it feel like what happened with and this is a little niche, but Five Nights at Freddy's. The first game that came out, I'm sure the creator had no idea what the lore or the backstory of any of these things. He just made a creepy game to scare people.
With
and then when it got
dead kids in suits.
Cool. When it caught fire, he was like, "Oh, better make some back lore."
Yeah. Yep. And it slowly builds. And if you can make something coherent while doing that, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. I also like the idea. I saw in the comments for the movie on Crunchyroll, people were talking about like, hey, who's your favorite character? Is it Yuta or Yuji? And some people were talking about how, Yuta was supposed to be the original main character and everything. I didn't understand at the time I read it, but now I kind of do, that it was the pilot main character. So that concept of, you had this main character and you were preparing them for a story of their own, even though it was a one-shot, and you didn't discard the main character. So now you have two competing main characters. That's cool. I like that idea too.
one of the reasons I bring it up is because I love short stories, and the one I always go to when I think about short stories is Stephen King, and especially there's a short story about a tiger in a bathroom, and it never bothers to tell you how the tiger got in the bathroom. It's just about a little kid trapped in a bathroom with a tiger and how terrifying that is. It's just like a random thought that came to his head. And what I love about it is a short story doesn't need to tell you why the tiger's in the bathroom. That's not what the short story is about. It's about this one unique experience, and it's not here to flesh out a world. And that's one of the things I love about short stories is I get to think like, oh, what was that about? How did the tiger get in the bathroom? Whatever. This on its own, if I had just watched this, I wouldn't feel the need to have all these questions answered. However, this isn't presented as a short story. What we're watching is a prequel to a first season we've already watched, and it's like, hey, no, this is part of a big universe, and all this stuff matters, and we find out this is a major moment in the lore, which it does a terrible job of presenting. It's both things at the same time, but because it's presented at the movie, I think you have to rate it as what it's showing as right now, as this movie.
And I think it reminds me of the Train movie for Demon Slayer. Like, on its own, there's a lot of it that doesn't make sense if you haven't watched the seasons.
Yeah, but that one pisses me off because then they went back and retold that story in the anime. They're not gonna. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Now I'm more. Chainsaw Man's about to get their next arc in a movie, and so what I really liked about this is that it's not going to be animated. You almost don't even have to watch this to keep watching the series. It's not super essential. You can get a lot of the context from the seasons. I think this is one of the movies I prefer, but I don't know. Let's go to reviews, and I'll see where you guys rate it. It's a really messy ones, but Jeremy, why don't you go first?
So for me, this is it's a hard 4. I still think the art is beautiful. The action sequences are just amazing, and the fights are great. And I mean, there's so many of them. I have my nitpicks. I have things that I really don't like about it, but it's not enough to even knock it down to a 3. I think that just what was created here is it's really well done. Just storytelling wise, it's a bit confusing.
All right, Jason, how about you?
I'm a little biased because I didn't get the experience that you guys did, so I'm unable to. I can see your point of view, right? Like I can see why a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. I can see why kind of feathering in or not information and then going, this is what it is, can be a little jarring. However, I didn't have that experience, and besides the whininess of the main character, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this. So I'm going to give it a 5. I really like it.
So my original watch, I definitely probably would have come in at a 3. Like, that was pretty, that was fine. I'll be honest, I wasn't even hyped to start season 2 after this movie. It didn't get me hyped. It wasn't really until the Shibuya arc really started that I started getting hyped for Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, going back, it's giving me a 5. Like, it's the puzzle piece that was missing. So I'm going to split the difference and take the average. I'm going to go a 4. Because I don't think it's
disappointed.
Perfect. I think
if it can't stand on its own.
Yeah, I think where it's presented in the story, even if there was just this movie and nothing else, it probably would go back up. But the fact that, hey, you made me watch season 1, and then you said, hey, come watch this movie. It's part of all this, but I'm not going to tell you why or how or explain anything. Here's the movie. So I'm going to go a 4. I'll say a high 4, just so Jason would be less pissy. All right, that is our thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Our next anime is Samurai Champloo, episodes 1 through 14. Classic rewatch for us. Again, we also want your recommendations for what you want to watch for the audience choice of the retro rewatch. And it can even be like a season old. It doesn't have to be 80s or 90s anime. Something that you just wish we always had taken the time to review. If there's some reason we can't, I will let you know. But yeah, we're looking for as many recommendations as we can so that we can set up some kind of voting system. With that, if you have thoughts on this movie or any other anime we watch, you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast or come to our website and comment, theanimebakaclub.com, and then hit the contact us button. Or wherever you found this podcast, there's usually some kind of posting system that will get us a message, and we tend to read those. So use those. And our recommendations can come from anywhere. We're not like only Twitter or anything. However you want to recommend the anime, we'll take it. So. And if you guys don't, my daughter will be controlling the pick.
Oh boy.
She's definitely going to vote. All right. I think it's time that we say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Explode!
Sayonara.